The darkness clung to the walls like a curse, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. I moved cautiously through the abandoned corridors of an ancient space hulk drifting in the void of the warp. My name is Captain Varian Korr, and my squad and I were on a mission sanctioned directly by the Inquisition. The derelict was a massive carcass, a graveyard of forgotten ships fused together by the warp's malevolent touch. It was said that once a ship entered the warp, it would never remain the same. The currents of unreality twisted and warped the very fabric of existence, leaving behind a nightmarish amalgamation of metal and flesh. The very walls seemed to whisper tales of despair, their distorted shapes forming grotesque parodies of forgotten symbols. In the warp, time lost all meaning. Hours, perhaps days, could have passed since we had entered the hulk, but none of us could say for sure. The corridors stretched endlessly, replicating themselves into a labyrinth defying logic. At every corner, a shadow seemed to flicker, yet nothing was there. Only the constant sound of our breathing and the pounding of our hearts filled the void. It felt as though the ship itself was watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. Our objective was clear: investigate the hulk, eliminate any heretical presence, and retrieve valuable artifacts useful to the Imperium. But the warp allows no simplicity. Its malevolence twists purpose into torment, and no mission is ever truly what it seems. As we delved deeper, it became evident we were not alone. The dim lights created unsettling shadows on the walls, playing tricks on my mind. I could swear I heard whispers, ghostly echoes of long-lost souls trapped in the warp. My bolter was gripped tightly in my hands, and my senses were on high alert. The warp was infamous for driving men insane, and I could not afford to succumb to its insidious influence. I remembered the legends told among veterans, that the warp not only distorts the body, but devours the soul.
"Captain, do you hear that?"
asked Sergeant Dane, his voice barely more than a scratch. His eyes darted nervously down the corridor, where the flickering light illuminated the path ahead. "Keep moving," I commanded firmly, though I felt my own resolve faltering. "The whispers are tricks of the warp. Focus on the mission."
"And what if we don't make it back, sir?"
Private Karen muttered, his voice trembling. I turned to them, my voice sharper than intended. "We are servants of the Emperor. His light guides us even here. Hold fast to that faith, or the warp will consume you." As we ventured closer to the heart of the hulk, the air grew colder, and the oppressive darkness seemed to close in around us. We stumbled upon a chamber, its entrance adorned with strange glyphs and symbols pulsing with otherworldly energy. My squad exchanged uneasy glances, but duty compelled us forward. The Inquisition's command was clear. No artifact, no matter how cursed, could be left in enemy hands.
"This feels wrong, sir,"
muttered Private Karen as he traced a finger over one of the glowing glyphs.
"Like we're walking into something we weren't meant to see."
"We are guided by the Emperor's light," I repeated, this time with firm conviction. "Form a line and stay vigilant." The chamber was a vast cavern, a cathedral of madness. The walls were lined with grotesque statues and twisted parodies of the Emperor's angels. The air was heavy with an unnatural silence that sent chills down my spine. At the far end of the chamber, an altar stood, and upon it rested a book bound in human flesh and written in blood. Its aura was palpable, a sickly glow that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. This was no ordinary artifact. It was a tome of forbidden knowledge.
"That book, it's alive,"
whispered Karen, his face pale under the harsh glow of his helmet's lamp.
"I can feel it, staring back at me."
"Silence!" I growled, though I too felt the unsettling presence emanating from the tome. "Hold your ground! Nothing leaves this chamber unpurged!" As I approached the altar, the glyphs on the floor began to glow, and the statues seemed to stir. I ordered my squad to form a defensive perimeter, but it was too late. The statues came to life, their eyes blazing with malevolence. The warp had birthed demons into our reality. The demons were an abomination, grotesque fusions of flesh, stone, and metal. Their spiked limbs extended like corrupted talons, their eyeless faces emanating a void of infinite darkness. As they moved closer, reality itself seemed to writhe around them, a distorted roar merging with the whispers of the warp.
They are everywhere!
Shouted Sergeant Dane as his bolter roared to life. Hold the line! I bellowed, my voice cutting through the chaos. The ensuing battle was a maelstrom of chaos and terror. The demons moved with unnatural speed, their forms twisting and contorting in defiance of physics. My squad fought valiantly, but many fell under the onslaught. I could feel the warp gnawing at my sanity, threatening to drag me into its abyss. The screams of my comrades became indistinguishable from the warp's whispers, a cacophony that ate away at my resolve. Every step I took was a battle against myself. The warp doesn't just attack the body. It seeps into the mind, insidious and relentless. The whispers grew louder, promising power, salvation, and truth. But every promise carried the sharp sting of deceit. As their leader, I could not afford to falter. My men needed strength, even as doubt clawed at the edges of my soul. Each command I gave was an act of defiance against the chaos, though despair crept into my heart. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, I raised my bolter and unleashed holy fire upon the demons. Their screams echoed through the chamber, but their otherworldly resilience seemed impenetrable. Then, a voice, ancient and malevolent, pierced my mind like a nail.
Captain Korr, you cannot escape the inevitability of the warp. Embrace the darkness, and all shall be revealed.
Its tone was not commanding but insidious, like the caress of a blade just before it strikes. "Get out of my head!" I roared, my voice hoarse with desperation. "You will gain nothing from me!" My cry was lost in the harrowing chorus of the warp. Every fiber of my being was under siege. Body, soul, mind, each a battlefield. Around me, my comrades lay fallen, their faces frozen in a mixture of horror and resignation. I was the last one standing, the only survivor, yet I felt my own will crumbling under the weight of chaos. The demons continued to surround me, their grotesque forms pulsing as if alive, corrupted and twisted by the warp's own will. Each time I struck them down, they seemed to regenerate, laughing with dissonant voices that scraped at my soul. The voice in my head grew stronger, more insistent, whispering promises of power, salvation, and a truth my heart could not bear to accept.
Captain Korr,
The voice hissed, now clearer, almost familiar.
your sacrifice will save no one. Join us, and you will be freed from torment. Resist, and the warp will consume all that you are.
Slowly, my gaze shifted to the altar. That cursed book, bound in human flesh and written in blood, seemed to call out to me. Its light pulsed in rhythm with my heart, a haunting invitation that promised both answers and destruction. It was clear that this was the source of the evil on this ship, the root of the corruption that had turned the Hulk into a death trap. I had to destroy it. But how? With the last reserves of my strength, I forced my way toward the altar. Every step was a titanic effort. Every movement brought me closer to the abyss that would consume me. The demons tried to stop me, but with one final surge of faith, I raised my bolter and fired a single shot at the book. The bullet detonated in a burst of sacred light, and a deafening scream reverberated throughout the Hulk, a sound not of this world. The book twisted and folded in on itself before exploding in a wave of energy that hurled me to the ground. The demons screamed in agony as they were pulled back into the warp, their forms dissolving into black smoke that tainted the air with the stench of death and ash. The entire hulk began to tremble, rocked by explosions rippling through every direction. Struggling to my feet, I realized the warp had begun to reclaim what was its own. The hulk was collapsing in on itself, dragged back into the darkness from which it had emerged. There was no escape. My mission was complete, but the price was my life. I closed my eyes and recited my final prayer to the Emperor, invoking his light to guide me through the void. O immortal Emperor, eternal protector of humanity, guide me through this darkness. Accept my soul before your golden throne, and let my sacrifice serve your glory and the Imperium. Forgive my failings, and grant me peace in your divine light. And so, Captain Varian Korr met his fate amidst the shadows of the warp. The hulk dissolved into eternity, and with it, every trace of his existence. Korr's sacrifice saved the Imperium from unimaginable corruption, but at what cost? Perhaps, somewhere within the warp, a spark of his soul continues to fight, a beacon of faith in a sea of despair. But this, like so many other tales, will be remembered only as a whispered legend among those who dare to challenge the darkness.